Hey, what's going on YouTube? Kenny here, and today we're going to talk about two quantum computing companies. That is IONQ, the first one, and the second one is AMD. And you're like, Kenny, AMD is not doing quantum computing. Okay, cool. That's fine. Here at Redcliffe Research, we are, in fact, only shill one company ever, and it's always AMD. And that's because Lisa Su is amazing in terms of talent and talent management, in terms of her social network analysis connections, in terms of how we quantify our networks, and kind of the success of companies in terms of personal connections, personal talent, personal innovations. She scores a moonlight rating. So therefore, we are very invested in AMD and that company. The second piece is they have filed 2 patents recently in the last 3 months that have kind of come to light. So we just want to talk about it. And the reason I'm saying that is because, so Danny B here in the chat, our boy Danny, asked, has anybody looked at IONQ, thinking about adding to my no-look account? And my first thought about this was like, okay, cool, quantum computing. I know nothing about quantum computing, and I mean nothing, but I do obviously kind of keep my toes into these sectors. So obviously the one thing that I would say is first, before we talk about IONQ and kind of what my thoughts on that are, here Danny's saying, putting it into his no-look account. So if you're new to this channel, Redcliffe Research kind of preaches the fact that you should have multiple accounts. Obviously, I have like a bazillion accounts only because I backtest a lot of strategies, obviously in hopes to kind of define which one works the best over time. So being very quantitatively driven, statistically driven, and evidence-based, we always think that, we can always do better. So we're always experimenting. First thing we would say, though, is always have a no-look account, was what we call it. But essentially, it's a long-term investment portfolio with your higher time horizon. So anywhere from 10 to 20 years is kind of what we're looking at here. And essentially, these emerging companies should be basketed into that. But I will say, even with that basket, even though we have a timeline of 10 to 20 years, we don't typically want those companies. The companies that we want are the ones that have a 5-year kind of time horizon. The portfolio itself is the long-term horizon portfolio. That said, though, we still want to try to capture it here because if we're wrong, then we can give it a couple of years or whatever like that, right? But we want to be mostly right. So you don't want to be too far off is what I'm saying. The second one is obviously a trading account. We do have trading accounts here. We do think about trading. And obviously, there's different ways to do it. But essentially, your trading account should be, a certain percentage of your wealth. This should be the most, obviously, percentage-wise. But the second piece is, you should have a trading account that kind of filters into that. You get your outsized gains. And if you do well every year, just kind of roll it into your long-term portfolio. Anyways, senior analyst in AI quantum computing Paul Smith-Goodson dives in as IONQ has delivered another chip technology ahead of schedule. Essentially, their chip development was about 1 year ahead of schedule, which is pretty massive. So as such, obviously the price of the stock went up. And so obviously you're going to ask the question, is this a great company to invest in? What I'd say is right now, like off the cuff, before I even started thinking about this, I asked myself, like, is AMD even thinking about these things and how far in the future are these? And so we'll kind of answer those 2 questions. So it says here, there are 2 major hurdles in the road to quantum computing development. And this is Tom's Hardware. So eventual quantum supremacy, right? Scalability and stability. Within the next 20, 30 years, I don't see regular computing going anywhere. And that's because quantum computing is very specific in what it can do and how it can be used. It'll be used in certain kind of academic settings at first, probably. And then you'll look to model things and kind of, play in interesting fields. Like encryption would be a big field that it could play in. And that's because essentially... I guess we should take a step back. If you don't know what quantum computing is, it's essentially, wow, I'm going to have to take a real far step back here. If you don't know what like quantum superposition or quantum entanglement is, you're going to have to just look it up. But essentially, it's like something being in 2 places at once until it's observed, right? And so because of that, you can figure out some interesting ways to use that to compute things, right? But you're computing things in that state. And that's why this state is such a hard place to recreate. It has to have a certain temperature, without any kind of fluctuations. And right now, like getting the exact state to be recreated and holding that in any kind of usable time frame to kind of like actually put an algorithm against it is still very nascent. Meaning you can get these particles into this state, but you can maybe not even get through a quarter of the algorithm that you would want a computer to use to be useful in any kind of coherent manner. So we're still there. And then the second piece is like, remember, like it's really good at like kind of like if you want to think about modeling, like things in quantum superposition will be easier to model because it itself is already in quantum superposition. So it could have an easier time with that. If I confused you, I'm not trying to confuse you. I don't know it well enough to like explain it clearly enough for you to understand. I just know it enough to kind of read through kind of some of this thought process. And really what I'm trying to do here is just kind of put my business lens on it. So if you're new to this channel, Redcliffe Research is an independent research firm that is quantitatively driven. That's because one of our partner companies that I co-founded is a social network analysis quantitative kind of company that deals a lot with this space, but we also do a lot of machine learning and AI because it's just an emergent technology. That said, because of that, I always want to have my toes dipped here. What I'm trying to do here for y'all is to tell you where we are in the kind of startup kind of venture capital space when it comes to quantum computing, and kind of maybe like in terms of product market fit where we are. And I've said product market fit a lot in this channel, but I don't know if I've ever really fully explained it for folks who don't really know. And for folks who have just heard me kind of squabble about it, I've never actually went and said Googled product market fit. It's essentially the idea that like, is the market ready for it? Are you too early or are you too late? I will indeed tell you, you're probably far too early when it comes to quantum computing. So I just went out on a tangent and still haven't finished reading this, but fickle matter is so sensitive that they can decohere in the slightest provocation. This is very true. So if anything happens to that state, it just doesn't work, right? And the quantum system sensitivity tends to increase with the presence of more qubits in a given system. So the idea is trying to take a lot of qubits and make it less qubits. And so IONQ has, in fact, looked to do that. And so they've been successful, which is why the stock price went up. So the AMD patent titled Look Ahead Teleportation for Reliable Computation in Multi-SIMD Quantum Processor aims to improve quantum stability, scalability, and performance in novel, more efficient ways. It describes a quantum architecture based on quantum processing regions, areas of a chip that hold or can hold qubits. Lying in wait for their turn for the processing pipeline, AMD's approach aims to improve the existing quantum architectures by actually reducing the number of qubits. And we just kind of talked about that, not scientifically, but really just less qubits is better. Needed to perform complex calculations via the science fiction-esque concept of quantum teleportation. Again, teleportation due to, again, quantum superposition. Okay, what does that mean? We're going to skip ahead and then we're going to come back. So 20 quantum computing companies that you need to know about, and IONQ was like number 13 or 14. And this is according to an article that I'm pulling up here. Quantum computing is poised to take the classical computers, make them look like sloths. Maybe. We're really far away though. So again, here's the article that was linked to me by Danny B. But IONQ delivers a new architecture in glass quantum computer chip a year earlier than expected. So Paul Smith-Goodson is probably one of the very few people who are following this space, at least in the financial sector. And so, obviously when he posts things, people are like Forbes, for instance, is going to kind of make sure that this gets a voice. So, the article just suggests that they're 1 year ahead of its pipeline. And of course, again, stock price went up. So IONQ has a lot of partnerships with Maryland, University of Maryland, but here's College Park, Maryland. It's attempting to reduce quantum computing to a simple numbers game, namely the number of total qubits. So we just talked about that, right? The truth is you have to consider qubit quality rather than quantity. Still, when IonQ last year bested the qubit counts of IBM 50 and then Google 72 with this 160 qubit processor's jaws dropped, right? Whereas most QC companies employ superconductors, IonQ, which recently welcomed famed Amazon Prime boss Peter Chapman as CEO, is pioneering the trapped ion method, through which ions are isolated in a vacuum and subatomic particles are cooled via lasers. So the cooled via lasers thing is the big deal, eliminating the need for the giant copper-looking contraptions that are common to quantum computing. And I think I have a slide to show that. Yes, I do. Great. Wow, just on cue. So basically, this is the copper wiring that we're looking at, and this is like the cooling piece of it, right, to try to keep it at that super cool state, the quantum state, if you will. But now they have this, and obviously this is a mock-up or whatever, but like, man, that looks so much cooler, which looks more sci-fi. So this is important. It doesn't matter how it works, which looks more sci-fi. So this is IonQ, and this is Google right now, right? So just kind of for your edification, this is visually what it looks like. So investors obviously flocking to the fact that, oh my God, now quantum computing can look like this as opposed to this, right? So, I mean, that's not nothing. It's definitely an improvement, just space-wise, right? Okay, so this is Quantum Daily. Okay, so this is for IBM, or not IBM, sorry, AMD. Well, the two patents does not a quantum research program make. The patents are extremely advanced and show a deep understanding of science in the field, and importantly demonstrates that the company has the necessary expertise. This is what I'm telling you guys, boys and girls. AMD, thank you. Necessary expertise for applying the understanding, et cetera, et cetera. What is my point? My point is, if you're invested in AMD, especially for the long run, IonQ, while it may be doing things and getting things ahead of schedule, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, look at the market cap. It can easily be bought by a company like, for instance, AMD, especially with kind of the broad-based alignment right now in kind of the nascent state of quantum computing as a whole. We don't know who the emerging actors are going to be yet. In fact, let's kind of marry this to crypto. So crypto, I would say, if you're going to say what quantum computing is here, and I'm kind of jumping ahead, but really quantum computing is so far, like if you're investing in quantum computing right now, God bless you. It's like you investing in kind of cryptocurrency about like 15 years ago, right? So, you know, this is not 2017. 2017 would have been the time to at least first kind of dip your toes into cryptocurrency to be very kind of lucrative, but not parking any money. I still think you're kind of way ahead when it comes to that. So, you know, you may be able to just have good companies that are thinking about it. So AMD is a company that obviously, based on this patents and stuff, are thinking about it. So do you have to look any further? I don't know that you do. So this is really stupid, but I just wanted to make sure. So, you know, I searched a couple of jobs when it came to any, and then I filtered through just anything that had to do with quantum computing, or the word quantum, and there's really nothing. But I will say that that's not, you know, a lot of this talent is going to be homegrown, or it's going to be kind of very specific. You're not going to, I mean, how many people in this field right now are just sitting around not doing any good work, right? You know these people, you're actively poaching them, you're actively using your recruiter networks. The only reason I'm saying that is because I read an article that was kind of suggesting that, oh my God, there's no kind of AMD career searches or everything like that, so they're not trying to build a bench. But I don't think benches are built like that. And so I think it's kind of a first level approach to thinking when it comes to that. If you're thinking that like, hey, they're going to post something on the board with quantum computing, we're too early for that, is what I'd suggest. So I'm just showing you this to show that I don't think you would post anything like that here right now. Okay, so does AMD have a serious quantum computing effort underway? And this is the quantum computing report, excuse me. So attention has been drawn to two quantum computing kind of patents, and so they're just talking about the patents here. But their conclusion is, so our conclusion is that there's more likely a one-off applications from classical processor designers who think that there may be a way to apply classical processor techniques to quantum. And I don't hate that. Everything is an innovation. Everything is an experiment until it isn't, right? Until it actually works. So, in the space of like innovation, in the space of like trying to solve problems, this is like what I would want to look at. So, totally very happy with that. I want to see AMD applying patents. So, totally cool. On a side note, AMD IONQ here becomes the third corporate member of UMD's University of Maryland's Quantum Startup Foundry. So, nothing really kind of newsworthy, except for the fact that I do want to remind you that when it comes to kind of these kind of academic spaces or kind of very innovative playgrounds, a lot of the talent you gets poached from the kind of leading edge institutions or academics from these fields. And obviously they play with the corporate side and kind of massage that through. But like that partnership is very important. Network wise, this is kind of a big deal for us. It's the same thing with like lithium batteries and things like that. So chemical engineering for lithium batteries. So like what chemical engineering university is this lithium battery startup working with? And so that's something that we would weight very heavily. So IONQ with UMD, and of course we haven't run the our full kind of weight against IONQ, but it's definitely something that kind of triggers spider senses here. The other thing is just multiverse, and only because we've been talking about it so much lately, and Facebook's on sale, so I might want to think about that. Here's a list of quantum processors according to Wikipedia. The only reason I bring this up is because on the first top 4 is just Google, and then IBM. But so the one thing about IBM and Rigetti is pretty common amongst the quantum computing folks. But the one thing I'd say about IBM, if you know anything about IBM, they're patent whores. I'm not saying that in a kind of derogatory way, but I am saying that in a derogatory way. A lot of their stuff is, I don't want to say snake oil. It's practically there, but the problem is, not the problem. The way that they monetize these solutions in terms of stock price or in terms of the company growth is kind of an interesting, I guess it's just flat, right? So again, a lot of it's theoretical, and then you want a great cross section with applied things. So Google does a really good job of that, making things actually happen, right, with the kind of technology. And so IBM, while they're always thinking about Deep Blue and trying to figure out all that stuff, and Watson, it's very theoretical is what I would say. So I'm not trying to give them not credit for this, but obviously if you go by this alone, you would say IBM is the company to invest in when it comes to quantum computing. And maybe that's the way you want to tackle it, but it's definitely a thought. My point is IONQ is not on this list. All right, so if you want to look at what happened to the stock price, obviously here, direct list or IPO, I'm not actually sure. Looking at $10, so I'm guessing it's an IPO. Gets up to about $15, comes back down. I do have this line drawn at $9.99 because, obviously it has stayed there and played there from, the latter part of July all the way into September, October. And then it kind of flushes down here to 724 before it rebounds, right? And right now, even off the rebound, which is a 63.87%, because of the good news, we're already back down to 9.66%. What is my point? This is kind of tantamount or parallel to what I think about kind of CRISPR technology, gene editing, and 3D kind of printing. It's one thing to have the technology and to kind of think about where it's at, but the second thing is like, how is it practical and how is it making money? And while the stock market is not the economy, it is a piece of the capital markets. And so, being a junior piece of the capital markets, it still has to bring in these inputs when it comes to like what's going on in the world and how that makes money for a company. So here's another chart. This is FinViz, and I only use FinViz because their trend lines are pretty what I would call conservative, and so it's not without merit that this trend is still going down. That's one. What you would want to do is obviously put a regression channel here, but not necessary just because of the kind of volatility here. what we have here at Redcliffe Research, which we haven't kind of looked at in a long time, but this is indeed one of the reasons why we made this chart. So this is what Redcliffe Research calls the investor cycle, but it's essentially, the tech cycle kind of modified for us to kind of look through things. And honestly, what we think here is if you're invested in quantum computing right now, not only you're a visionary, you're probably a little bit too early. You're probably parking money is what I'm saying, and not in a good way. Not parking money like you're going to get any returns. I think even if you didn't invest until 5 years from now, you probably still get very good gains. And so if you don't believe me, I'll show you another chart. But the reason why we do this, and I did this before I looked around and did any research, this is just a knee-jerk reaction to kind of the things that I know in terms of the research that I've done. But, here's the Gartner hype cycle. And as you can see here, this is 2021. So this is the emergent technology cycle. When it comes to quantum anything, the only thing that's really showcased here is quantum machine learning. And as you can see here, it's this triangle. The triangle is greater than 10 years, meaning that it's still in the innovation trigger. So there's other things here. So peaks of inflated expectations, the trough of disillusionment, the slope of enlightenment, the plateau of productivity. As you can see here, they're saying NFTs is all the way up here and about to take a take a ride, right? What's my point? It's not even enough of a kind of colloquial kind of dialogue yet when it comes to quantum computing, and therefore, if smart folks are having a hard time explaining it to their friends, it's still just not ready. One of the things that I would say is, like, if you look here, decentralized finance, so like crypto, right, and the blockchain is still 5 to 10 years off. And I would say if you're like you want to audit the Gartner hype cycle, it's been pretty good. You got to remember these folks are kind of auditing kind of the best minds in the nation, and they have a really good track record, is what I would say. So decentralized finance is still 5 to 10 years away, meaning if you want to get into crypto, you're probably not too late right now, is what I'm saying and suggesting. But quantum computing, you are very, very, very early. Now, I'm not trying to talk you out of this. I'm just trying to tell you where you are in the kind of space. So this is IONQ. I wanted to just show you the fin box, or the kind of balance sheet, if you will, just to show you that, in terms of what we're looking at, I really couldn't pull out much. And, even if you go back to their S1 filing, it's going to be a rough pull. Not really worth the effort. All I'll say is, like, leverage free cash flow is not good. Revenues on the upside, that's fine. The PE ratio, I'm not interested in because this is a growth stock. CAGR, of course, obviously not going to be there. Gross profit margin really on the decline. So this is the reason I kind of want to pull this up, gross profit and gross profit margin. So I know that I told you that, we're 10 years, 20 years away still. And so with that, you want to think about a growth story, and you want to understand that growth story, right? So even if you are fully bullish on that, you're getting no help now, is what I'm saying. So one of the things that I think about is, like, for instance, ASML is a company that's looking at kind of very, very miniaturized sub-nanometer, et cetera, UAV chip production. My point is they still have a natural pipeway to make money, and they're looking at making money as that technology emerges. So two pieces of the pie, where IONQ is basically, so this is 10 years plus, and this is now, right? So actually, let's break it down into, like, business acumen, right? So if you're a business person, you got your cool MBA, and I don't have an MBA, but, like, my CFO is always telling me about this. So now, near, far, right? And so he's always lecturing me, but now, so now, near, far. So if you're thinking about now, near, far, like, are they making money now? No. Are they making money in the near term? No. Are they making money in the far term? Potentially, check mark, right? So ASML, are they making money now? Yes. Are they making money near? Yes. Are they making money far? Yes. That's what you want. AMD, the same thing. Check, check, check. Here, you have all your eggs in this far basket in terms of what IONQ is doing. And so because of that, just kind of not very interested. And honestly, I'm going to just rather bet on AMD if I want quantum computing exposure. until the trend emerges and becomes a very powerful company. For instance, in the crypto space, and I'm going to keep going with this because it's a really good proxy right now, we are starting to see coins, i.e. Solana, ADA, things that weren't fully emerged in 2017, now just taking foot, right? So based on that, just understand that it takes time to really separate the wheat from the chaff when it comes to these companies and it comes to the growth cycle. But if you don't trust me and you want to take a look at ShipRanks, Mark and Richard, which have very good scores, 4.5, 4.75 stars ratings, they have a price target of $18 and $20, so with 100% and 86.34% upside. So that's not nothing, and I do think that that's something that you should consider. But for me, for my money, for my value, I'm going to go ahead and wait on the sidelines for a company like IONQ, but very interested in obviously very interested in continuing to deploy money and tranches into AMD. So that's kind of where we're at. Cool. So if you like what you see, you know what's up and you know what to do. I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's beneath me. For the folks who watch my channel a lot and you haven't seen me in a while and you're wondering where I'm at, this is for you. Everybody else, good luck. See you later. Take care. Okay, so podcast type vibes. Okay, what have we been doing? So we've gotten to thinking here. And 1 second, I'm going to go ahead and take a sip of this. So ran out of red wine. That's indeed why we stopped doing videos. No, that's not it. This is actually gin and tonics. Not my wife's, but we'll go with it. Let me see. It's pretty good. Okay, here's my point. Really going back to our roots for a couple of reasons. One, I want to make sure our research is good. And I know I've talked to you all about that before, but, really there's two things, right? Like, to grow on YouTube, you can just generally make Neo videos. You can make due diligence videos and all this other stuff. It's really easy to do, but it's not what I want to do. And so because it's not what I want to do, and this is the reason why I don't want to do it. I do want to serve the community, but the reason why I want to serve the community, I want to do it right? So I think the better way to serve the community is get the algorithms right, get the trades right, get the kind of baseline when it comes to not only just research, but like how we do the research and how we present it to you and how we get that kind of refined, let me think about this, just that refined research matrix to you, right? So something that you can use for yourself. So I want to get to a point where like, hey, this is how we short stocks. This is how we create our weighted indicator. Go out. Here's the formula. Do it yourself, and it works for now. Obviously, that's the thing about the stock market, concurrency and recency. It doesn't work and last forever, but when it works really good, right? And that's why we always tell you, if a moving indicator doesn't work for a stock, then don't use it, right? If a trend line works really good for a stock, even though I'm pretty much predisposed to not use trend lines, use it if it works really good. And that's why, you saw in the beginning, we weren't showing you the DeMark indicator, but there was a time DeMark was working really well for most stocks. And so we brought it into our systems. Have we kind of shied away from it recently because of where it's at and how the market is? A little bit. And so we've brought in regression channels. So, really just looking at what's working in the market at any given time. So that's kind of where we're at, and that's kind of how we're thinking about the markets now. But again, not interested in growing the channel if we're not growing it in the right way. So essentially, not going to just make videos to make videos. The easiest way, and I already know this because we've seen it in the data, and we're data nerds, so we know this. Like if I make Baba, AMD, Jamiya videos every day, news videos, we would blow up. But I don't care because honestly, here's the thing. Every day I make a video. I do it for the fam. I do it for the Slack channel. I do it for the Red Cliff Research family because, like, honestly, every day I think to myself, I could just go trade. Like, it's not necessary to make this video. But and this is not like oh, I'm so cool. I'm a profitable trader. I don't mean to come off that way. But like between businesses and kind of contracts and some of the merging kind of rounds of funding that we're looking at, there's so much better ways to do this. But I like doing this and I enjoy doing this, but I want to do it the right way. So, I just went long there. And if you did watch the last 5 minutes of me kind of ranting and doing podcast things, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. And for the Patreons, I'm going to go deep. We're going to give you a lot of value. Trust me. I know it seems like we haven't been here for a while and we've been absent, but let me tell you that I promise you, we're going to get that first course out, and then we're going to get the options course out. It's going to happen. It's going to happen before January. It's going to happen. You're going to get hours and hours and hours and hours of content. So thanks for watching. We really appreciate you. Hope you liked this video. And just let me know what you think about quantum computing, man. It's a tough one to tackle right now, only because it's so early, and so it's just where we're at, and that's where I think we're at. So if you're in the space, or actually you're dealing with this, let me know. I'm really interested in finding out where you guys think this is going. So take care. See you tomorrow.